Come on, where is it? There it is.
Welcome back into the Dead Arm Sports Podcast. Starting hot. Coming at you. We are recording on Tuesday. You are listening to us on Wednesday, unless you're one of the few that are watching us live on YouTube. If you are, appreciate it. Gel, kicking it off with a quick QOTD today. Have a big show for you. Got a lot to go over and discuss. Going to throw it back a little bit to, I guess, childhood. I don't know the last time you touched either of these things, but are you a markers guy or a crayons guy?
Well, if we're talking about coloring, I like the crayons just because of the smell. You get the smell, like there's just that smell to a good old-fashioned old box of crayons that seeps into the cardboard box and everything. Obviously not as smooth in terms of coloring, but I was never a big art guy anyway, so the crayons let me screw up a little bit more too and still get away with it.
Nice. Were you one of the crayon people that would always, like, if you're coloring a picture, you'd like outline it a little heavier in the crayon and then go a little lighter on the inside, or just same pressure on the entire picture?
I mean, I don't know if I had a huge, like a major color or crayon coloring strategy. I guess probably. Okay. I mean, if you go full force for the entire picture on your little 6-year-old wrist, you're gonna be sore. So
yeah, won't be a dead arm; it'll be a dead hand.
Dead hand coloring. Join our new spinoff podcast just announced.
Just Joe and I coloring for 50 minutes on YouTube.
That would kind of be a little fun.
I was always a markers guy, even though I'd always hate it because I'd get done coloring the picture and my hand would be absolutely destroyed on the side with markers. But I don't know. I just like the vibrantness of the markers as opposed to the crayons. Sometimes it's just kind of soft and not as noticeable. But
now, did you ever have the markers, the like ones with a scent? Like the purple marker smelled like grapes?
No, the only time I used those was like, I think the teachers would have those in school to like use, and you'd have those and everyone would be just like huffing markers in class. Just so stupid.
Snowden, baby.
Oh yeah. My favorite
they
markers,
say non-toxic, but this was back in like the 90s, so who knows?
Yeah. I always like the color changing markers too, that you'd like have that white marker and you'd color over something you already colored and then it would turn like a different color.
I don't know if I ever saw those. That's kind of neat.
Those are cool for a little bit, except the white marker would take on whatever color you were going over. So the tip on that would just be destroyed too after a couple of uses. So
well, what's the point of that then?
Yeah, it is what it is.
Oh, that's awesome. Good work.
Little trip down memory lane.
Throwback.
There,
yeah, no kidding.
We can be found at Dead Arm Sports, Twitter, Instagram. Check us out on Facebook at Dead Arm Sports. Be the first thing that pops up. Go to YouTube, type in Dead Arm Sports. You see our nice black and yellow logo. Subscribe, click the bell. That way you know when our live episodes drop. Got that chat up so you can ask us any sports, any questions. Doesn't even have to be sports related there. We'll answer them on the podcast. You miss out on asking us live on the podcast. You can find us on our individual socials at Dead Arm Sports, at DasGel, that's at DASJEL. I can be found at DasJPEC, that's at DASJPEC. Give both Gel and I a follow. Make sure you go to your favorite listening platform, subscribe, write a review, send us a screenshot of that review, and we will get you some Dead Arm Sports swag sent out for free. Well, Gel, I was excited to talk about this podcast segment, the national championship recap going into the game yesterday. Thoughts it might be a good game. I know you hit this right on the head. Well, not really, because you said the Georgia win by 3 touchdowns, and that was probably like after the first quarter, but Georgia ends up just absolutely erasing any doubts that they're not the best team in the country. 65-7 over TCU. It was 10-7 at one point, and that was as close as it was.
55-0 run to close the game.
Just insane. Stetson Bennett, 304 yards through the air, 4 touchdowns, added another 2 on the ground to kind of cement his ridiculous Georgia legacy this last 2 years there, and just I mean, not somebody that you would have thought would lead them to 2 national championships, but here we are.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it was the first rushing touchdown from Stetson. I don't even think TCU thought he had the ball for the first like 20 yards that he ran downfield. It was so sad. Like, and does it shock you at all? This was I just saw this right as that's why I was just staring at my phone as you were going through the promos. Lowest rated college football championship game since the BCS started. Is there any shock to that at all? I mean, no. We both everybody was just completely uninterested in that second half unless you're a Bulldog fan. But I mean, it was just pure domination. Yes, TCU's Kendre Miller, their starting running back, was out, but that's 55 points is 55 points. I don't think that wasn't the difference.
He wasn't playing on the defensive side of the ball. That's
sure. Exactly. And I guess that's the other thing too. One of the bigger takeaways of, that I came away with is, I mean, Georgia, most of these dominant SEC teams, plus, you add in an Ohio State. Michigan has a really good second running back after Blake Corwin and Donovan Edwards. I mean, Ohio State always has multiple backs. Most of these top SEC teams, your Alabamas, your Georgias, they've got multiple awesome backs, so that if their top guy does go down, there's the next guy that was probably a high school All-American is sitting there waiting. And that's not just at running back. That's at any position. Alabama's got other stud quarterbacks, tons of wide receivers, offensive, defensive linemen, secondary linebackers. Georgia had 6 guys get drafted in the first round last year on the defensive side of the ball. And then they come back this year, and Jalen Carter, who wasn't even eligible for the draft last year, he's got he's up there in the top 2 in terms of, most of these NFL big boards or mock drafts, top 2, top 3, kind of a pick. And they come out and in the title game, give up 7 points. It's just, that's the difference between these loaded squads and a TCU team where their offense is completely dependent on Quentin Johnson, who went for a whopping 1 for 3 yards, 1 reception for 3 yards. Kendre Miller, who again didn't play, and then Max Duggan either having to be spectacular or, whether it's on the ground or through the air. I mean, Duggan's numbers were brutal. 152 through the air, no touchdowns, 2 picks. And on the ground, this, includes sacks, but negative 38 yards on the ground. If you watch that Big 12 championship game and that game against Michigan, his ability to run the ball was massive for that TCU offense. So with that being completely eliminated, it effectively eliminated TCU's offense. And Quentin Johnson, a top 3 receiver in the nation, right there with, nobody's on Marvin Harrison Jr.'s level, but he's in that. I mean, he's right there up at the top, and to be completely shut down, 1 reception for 3 yards. Just obviously the scoreboard tells you everything that you need to know, but I mean, even when you do a little bit deeper of a dive, it's almost like it gets uglier the more that you look into it.
No, for sure. And that was one of the takeaways, or one of the keys that we had talked about last week on the pod for the game, was which Georgia defense was going to show up in this one. We saw them look kind of pedestrian against Ohio State. CJ Stroud was doing what he wanted, and I give Georgia's defense a ton of credit in this one. They came out inspired, and it seems like they had kind of taken that game to heart and said, this isn't the defense that we are. This isn't the defense we want to be remembered for. And they made Max Duggan look extremely uncomfortable in the pocket. He was getting pressured from left, right up the middle. I mean, he couldn't get anything going in this one, and it was just complete domination on that side of the ball for sure.
The other thing too, I mean, I kind of came out. I got to give myself a little pat on the back here. Not the toughest prediction to make, but I said that I think Brock Bowers is going to be a massive difference maker. And he was 7 for 152. It seemed like any ball that was, and a touchdown. It seemed like any ball that was thrown to him, it was his. So it's just too many mismatches for that Georgia offense versus that TCU defense that, let's be honest, they'd been facing Big 12. They've been facing the Big 12 all season long, those Big 12 defenses, and it's been their offense that carried them. Even in that Michigan game, they still let up 40 plus points to Michigan, but their offense was able to roll enough for them to still win that game. So I don't know. We saw obviously the good Georgia defense. I heard one of their defensive players after the game said, yeah, people said we were going to go 7-5.
I saw that video.
I don't know who had ever said that. Whoever did, they might have been talking about the Mark Richt years or something, but I don't think anybody with the right mind would have said 7-5 for the Bulldogs. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what more needs to be said about this game. It was just, it's one of those that I certainly won't. It was on the DVR, and it certainly won't be rewatched.
No, exactly. And it was, I guess my last thing I wanted to say too is kind of what you had said with that TCU defense. Brock Bowers, just absolute monster game. And it was just kind of disappointing for me because TCU's defense really came out firing outside of that first possession from Michigan. They had a couple pick sixes. They looked good. They were getting pressure on Michigan in the backfield. And for whatever reason in this one, it was almost like they came into this game like, yeah, we have absolutely no shot here. And they just kind of forgot what they were even doing. Like you had said, the first drive of the game was Stetson Bennett scoring that 20-some yard rushing touchdown. There isn't anyone even in sight. Like it looked like they were just totally confused.
Georgia had 2 linemen downfield, like trying to find somebody to block. But the entire defense was on the other side of the field. I don't think they touched anybody until Bennett was inside the goal line or inside the end zone. It was so bad.
So bad. All right. Before we jump into the NFL gel, got to do an early prediction for next season. Who's your top team, or maybe a couple teams that you're looking for to have a shot at the national championship next year?
I mean, I need to see what USC does in the portal.
On defense.
What's that?
On defense.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If they get some guys, from these SEC squads, I was just talking about how they have so much depth. If you can poach some of these guys from an Alabama, Georgia that aren't getting playing time now and say, hey, you come over here, you're going to be a starter for this defense. And they're big, physical, tough guys. You get maybe a couple guys from the Big Ten, especially, maybe some of the freshmen or sophomores that are on current Big Ten schools, knowing that they're going to be moving over to the Big Ten the following season. Maybe you've got a chance at snagging some of the Big Ten, more physical players, especially in that D line, and then getting some speed and some physicality in the secondary from the South. If they're able to, and Caleb Williams is coming back, assuming he doesn't, pull a Lamar and pretend that he's injured or something to get more NIL money. But I think that they're obviously extremely scary if they bring in some players. If not, maybe they peak at a CFP appearance, but there's no chance they can compete with the SEC. Otherwise, Ohio State, you got holes with CJ Stroud leaving. Obviously, Marvin Harrison's coming back, and their skill position players are awesome. But you've got Paris Johnson, that top offensive tackle that's heading out to the NFL, and Stroud is leaving as well. So, and that defense is still a question mark. Michigan, JJ McCarthy, come on. So I guess sadly, I think you're looking at Georgia, Alabama. Cade Klubnik looked like shit in that bowl game. So I don't know how much faith I can put in Clemson. Texas, I can't trust Sark. So the 2 teams that I trust in the country, shocker, Alabama, Georgia. I wouldn't be surprised if that's our national championship game next year.
Yeah, no, I agree
Even
with
with
that.
Bryce Young, Will Anderson leaving, it's just, Alabama can just reload.
Yep. Yeah, Georgia. I mean, shit, we saw their backups come in the second half, and they're still running all over TCU. Branson Robinson, true freshman, had 2 rushing touchdowns at the end of the game, and they didn't even skip a beat once their backups came in.
So ridiculous.
Just nuts. And then, Alabama, they're losing Bryce Young, Will Anderson, but you know that they're going to retool and be fine. It's Nick
amazing
Saban.
That you can lose the top 2 picks in this upcoming draft and it's fine.
Just reload.
It's just fine. I think Notre Dame might be a team also to look out for with Sam Hartman coming in. Yeah, they made such a big jump in the second half of this season that getting that massive upgrade at quarterback, one more year under Marcus Freeman, I think they might be a team that we could see, preseason in the preseason top 5 maintain their way there, or maintain that throughout the season. And Brian Kelly's new team, LSU, Jaden Daniels is coming back.
Yep. I was going to bring them up too, to see if they can take that next step forward under Brian Kelly in his second year at LSU is a team to watch out for. And I like your USC call out too. I think that they have obviously the talent on offense. It's just whether or not they can scrap up some sort of defense to stop teams from scoring on them. They were just absolutely pitiful their last couple games there, but I'm glad you brought up USC too, Joe, because I just want to put this down right now. It's no hot take or anything like that, but the Pac-12 is going to by far be the best conference to watch for football next year. You got Caleb Williams, DJ Ukulele, Cam Rising, Cam Ward, Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr., all returning next year. I am pumped for the last hurrah before the LA teams leave the Pac-12. It's going to be an absolute blast to watch next year.
I need to look up this Arizona Wildcats quarterback, Jaden DeLora. If you haven't watched him, he's on that Pac-12 late night, the ones those games that end at like 1 a.m. They played in like 2 or 3 of those games this year, and he is so much fun to watch. So he just adds, he's not a high profile name, but that dude is such a freaking wild card. He fits the Wildcat, nickname perfectly. That dude is such a wild card. He's either spectacular or awful. It's just awesome. And he's just kind of he's like a less good version of Johnny Manziel, where he's just, running around and making plays. And it's either a glorious play that Johnny Manziel would always make, or it's like, what the hell did you just do there? So
nice.
Just add him into the list in terms of quarterbacks that are really fun to watch. I guess I had one more Pac-12 question for you, and that is, what kind of a chance do you give Oregon and Utah in this conference? They've been the 2 most consistent programs in the Pac-12 over the last 5 to 10 years, if not even longer than that. What kind of a chance do you give them? And then, UCLA, they just got it. Maybe not this year, given the DTR left, but they might be a program on the rise as well, given that they just got the number 1 dual threat QB recruit in the country.
Yep. Throw Colorado into the mix too. They could be a surprise team with Dion there, but no, Oregon, Utah, absolutely they have a chance. Both their returning quarterbacks coming back, Cam Rising, Bo Nix. So I like their chances. The only thing that concerns me with the Pac-12, they could turn into the Big 12 from this year, where they're just all kind of beating up on each other, and you could end up missing out on a playoff because of that fact.
And there's just no one team that where
there's going to be a ton of really good teams, but there might not be that one outstanding team to get into that playoff. But hopefully there is, because they're going to be an absolute blast to watch, but we'll see. Because I think there's going to be a lot of good parity in that conference.
It's just been a complete shift from where the ACC was back when Florida State was good. You've had Clemson they were, up there for a long time. It's like, now it's like it's all shifting back west, I guess, and the ACC is just completely falling off. There's nobody in that conference that even has a chance to be elite.
No, I don't think so.
I really don't think so.
All right, NFL regular season is in the books. We're going to start off here talking about some of the coaches that are in the books and are no longer on their teams. That is Nathaniel Hackett with Denver, got fired in season. Matt Rule, Carolina, in season. Frank Reich, Indianapolis, in season. Cliff Kingsbury got the axe after getting extended last offseason, and Lovie Smith went out with a bang in Houston and it got canned as well. Not really any surprises there. Cliff Kingsbury, I guess, because I just didn't think that they would have the balls to move on from him, but he clearly was not the right coach for Arizona at all. So,
well, I mean, and there were rumors before this that he, like, if he wasn't fired, he would consider resigning. Like, and that was just probably floated out there by, I don't know, whoever, but he was that miserable, and kind of can't blame him. You got to deal with Kyler, who's making $45 million a year, who's clearly not committed to, owning his craft and trying to be the best player that he can be, and thinking he can just kind of freelance his way into success. And well, we saw this year. Can't do it, as Mike Singletary would say famously. Cannot win with him. Cannot play with him. Cannot coach with him. I want winners. Put that one in the tapes. This mic is on, right? Oh God, I just ruined my voice doing that. No, and the other thing that I thought interesting about this Cardinals piece is it sounds like Kyler's going to have some input on who this new head coach is. And I think that's the owner saying, okay, Kyler, you won this battle with Kingsbury. We gave you a deal that we can't get out of. We can get out of the Cliff Kingsbury extension. That's effectively a tax write-off for me. We can't get out of the Kyler Murray deal, just, obviously the way the salary cap works. So Kyler, you won this round, but you've got 3 years here to make this right. And you are getting your choice at the head coach. So if it doesn't work with him, I'll give you 3 years, 3 years. But if it doesn't work with him, we're cleaning house again. And that's going to include you this time. So I think that that's going to be motivation for Kyler to make it work, especially given that he's going to be choosing his own guy. So that if he screws it up and if it doesn't work again, who's left to blame? It's a new GM. It's a new head coach. It's the same quarterback. Who's left to blame? This is on you, Kyler. We're going to give you more responsibility here and see if, show yourself that you're committed to this team. And if you're not, again, we kind of have to stick with you just with the contract situation, but this is it. This is it for you, man.
Yep. Then Lovie Smith essentially met with McNair earlier in the week and met with them and had talked about his longevity, I guess, in Houston, and goes up to Indianapolis this last weekend. All they have to do is lose to get themselves the number 1 pick. And Lovie must have known he was going to be on his way out the door because he coached to win the game in that one. They ended up getting a touchdown with 4th and 20, I think, from like the 25-yard line, throws a touchdown pass that somehow the Indianapolis defender did not catch. I don't know.
It was right at him, and he just jumped I don't know who taught him how to jump and how to play defense, but he jumped about a second and a half too early.
Yes, but Houston ends up catching the touchdown, and then instead of tying the game to go to overtime, decide to go for 2 and the win and get it converted. Defense comes out and wins the game. Bears lose earlier in the week, so I'm happy we got the number 1 pick in the draft. But essentially, Lovie, I don't know if he got fired in Indy or when they landed back in Houston, but he was canned that night. He didn't even make it till Monday.
That could have totally been a Lane Kiffin leave him on the tarmac situation. like, dude, you got me. You just screwed me so hard. And I mean, is this Lovie's biggest win for the Bears as a head coach in the NFL?
I think outside of that NFC Championship game that they had, but I mean, yeah, Lovie doing the Bears favors even after it's been a decade, I think, over a decade since he's been coaching them, but obviously helped him out one last time.
He was just, he's just inside. He's so freaking happy too. He's like, screw this organization. I'm glad that they gave me an opportunity, but they come out and tell me that we're going to let you go after this game. Like, okay, guess what you get? You get a little taste of some lovey action.
Oh yeah.
Some lovey-dovey.
I think the last name I wanted to bring up here is we had reports over the weekend of Sean McVay going to be taking some time after the season to decide his coaching future. For me, I'll kick it over to you, Jel, but is there any way he comes back? I just don't see it. I think he's done. I think he's going to end up going into the TV booth for a while and just kind of reevaluate, take some time off from the coaching aspect.
It's been a rumor now for 2 years. And today he announced that he would let all of his assistants go find other jobs if they were asked to interview. And he's saying he's allowing all of his entire staff to interview. So that kind of tells me that's one more massive hint that I think he's kind of done. I mean, he said it before that he doesn't plan on being a lifer in this. He doesn't want to be a Belichick or a Parcells or, a guy that's just grinding it out for 50 years. He's a new dad. He's got a model for a wife. Like, he lives in LA. He's already rich. Why not go take the cushy job? And that everybody knows he's going to be awesome as a color commentator. I mean, we've seen some of his post-game interviews when they've asked him like, hey, so what happened on this play? And he's got such a photographic memory that he's able to recite every single thing about it, the down and distance, what yard line they're on, what the previous play was, exactly what happened, who made the catch or who sealed some significant block on with a pulling guard or something. It could be anything. And he's got such a photographic memory, and he's really good at describing what happened and why this certain thing happened or why that play call was made or who screwed up, like what the safety was maybe supposed to do. And instead he was supposed to be the deep man. Instead he came up to try to cover some underneath route. And that's how they got burned on a deep ball. Like, he's going to be amazing. And he can probably make the same amount of money in the booth as he is on the ground floor at the Rams facility. So instead of working 100 hours a week plus, go work 20 if you include time on the plane traveling stadium to stadium. Like,
yeah,
and just go make the same quiche, and then you can always come back 2 years, 3 years down the line, maybe go back to the Rams after they finish their rebuild, because if McVay's gone, the Rams really, I mean, they're going to be in rough shape. So maybe Stan Kroenke invites him back in 3 years after they've got some of their, some new fresh faces in there.
Yeah, because you wonder too what the domino effect will be if Sean McVay does hang it up. I mean, Aaron Donald was toying with retirement last offseason. Stafford's been hurt this year. He said he's coming back, but you wonder if he would reevaluate that. If Sean McVay's not there, he's got to go through another new system with the new coach coming in. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. They don't have a first round pick. They haven't in 100 years, it seems like, at this point in time. So
I think this was their 6th or 7th straight draft this last year, and they don't have one this year right now. So insane. I guess sticking with this theme of sticking with the Rams, I guess, if McVay goes, do you maybe trade Stafford to a Jets type of team? Jets are obviously in need of a quarterback, and their defense is strong enough. They've got awesome weapons all across the board. They need a left tackle, yeah, but they need a quarterback more. Let's say the Jets give the exact same draft compensation that the Rams gave the Lions. They give them 2 firsts and a 3rd or a 4th or whatever that compensation was. If McVay's gone, do you make that move? Do you maybe even trade a Cooper Kupp and see if you can get a first and a third back? Do you trade Aaron Donald, see if you can get a first back to another contender and really start this rebuild full on? Because right now they've got no assets outside of their veteran players. Move off of Bobby Wagner for a second or third. I mean, if McVay goes, unless they're able to get, Sean Payton in there, I think this team is in deep trouble. So I think they have one or two strategies, and that's either get Sean Payton to replace McVay or just blow it up.
Well, their window's done to me. I think you have to blow it up regardless. And I think that's kind of where Sean McVay sees that writing on the wall right now, because you have a lot of aging veterans on that team. And again, no draft capital at all. You don't have any first round picks right now. And I think you do need to trade some of these guys away to get assets and just kick that rebuild into jump drive with that, because you got your Super Bowl out of it. So that's fine. That's worth all of the number one picks. I mean, any franchise would trade in number one picks for a Super Bowl. So you got your Super Bowl out of it. Yes, you would have liked to have more success, maybe had another two in there, but you didn't. And your window's closed right now. And yeah, I think absolutely. I think they need to, regardless of if Sean McVay comes back. But obviously, if he comes back, they're not going to be doing that. But I think that would help if he did retire this offseason. And then you say, all right, we had our Super Bowl. This is what we're doing right now. This clearly, we don't have anybody to build around right now on the team. Everybody's for sale. We'll ship whoever you want, give us trade offers, and try and get as much draft capital as you can.
Yeah. And that, if they go into a rebuild like that, I think that would be a pretty large turnoff for Sean Payton. He doesn't want to go into a rebuild. No. He just left the Saints, who didn't have a quarterback and have a shitty roster. I mean, you saw this season, they could barely score the ball. So if they do go that route, then I think Sean Payton's off the table. And then what do? You go rehire Jeff Fisher?
Oh gosh, hopefully not.
But I don't know. That's going to be an interesting, that'll obviously be an interesting one to see how that plays out through the offseason.
Yeah.
I have a question for you regarding, and sticking in with the head coaching theme. Right now, Panthers, Colts, Broncos, Jets, Cardinals are open. Is that right? Those five?
No, not the Jets, Houston.
What did I
You said the Jets in there.
Oh, I think I meant to say Denver, Texans or something.
Okay. Denver, Houston. Carolina, Indy, Arizona, Houston. Those are the five open spots right now.
Most desirable, least desirable in your mind? I mean, they're all brutal. There's a lot of missing pieces on every single one of these jobs, but there's only one that has a quarterback in Kyler, at least a talented one. But do you want to deal with that? Or you've got the Texans, who they've got the number 2 pick and plenty of draft capital. Broncos, at least you've got a stud. You've got a stud defense. You've got Javonte coming back. You've got nice skill players. Colts, that's to me like I would vomit if somebody offered me that job. And then the Panthers, I mean, I don't know. That organization's in a weird spot.
I think to me, I think the most desirable to me would probably be Houston. They have a ton of draft capital right now. They've drafted some young players the last couple of years that seem like they can be pretty solid NFL guys down the road. Granted, that ownership is just a train wreck, and that would not be a fun one to work with. But Denver, too, like you had said, it's the key for that coach, though. You're going to have to unlock Russell Wilson. You are tied to him. They can't do anything with him. They've traded a bunch of their draft capital for Russell Wilson. So you need to get Russell Wilson back to how he was in Seattle, which they have the pieces on offense to do that. But
what's the key? What is the key to that? I mean, to unlocking Russell Wilson, where is the key to that lock?
I don't know.
I can't figure it out. It's like, do you want him to try? I mean, he's in his 30s. He's not going to go back to that, mobile 25-year-old that he was. He's not a good enough pocket passer. That's why Seattle never committed to let Russ cook. Geno Smith just passed him this season in 1 year, passed Russell Wilson for all time, or the highest passing yards in a single season by a Seahawk. Geno Smith just did that this year. Russ never cooked in Seattle like we all thought he would or was capable of. He never got a single MVP vote. Can Russ cook? I mean, or do you just need him to be a Geno Smith and just be a game manager? And we saw, I mean, Geno obviously had a really nice year with two weapons, with a stud back in Kenneth Walker. Now, I think Kenneth Walker's on a different level than Javonte Williams, but Javonte's really, really solid when healthy. It'll be interesting to see how he comes off that ACL, but oh my God, Kenneth Walker might be a top 3 back in the league. He's next level, but what do you do? I just don't know what it's going to take. He was horrible and he was missing easy stuff, wide open stuff, well-designed stuff where receivers were open. He was just either completely misreading and going to a different receiver or missing throws, wide open throws. Like nothing looked good from him this year.
Yeah. And like you said, it was him throwing too. You could see it in that. It's not like, oh, you had, I don't know, Adam Gase there calling plays or somebody that's just an absolute bonehead calling shit plays. But I mean, yeah, Hackett got fired. He was the offensive guru supposedly behind the scenes in Green Bay, and that didn't transition over to this offense. But I mean, that Russ is their quarterback. There isn't any way around that. So their coach that comes in, they're going to have to see that, okay, we don't have the Russell Wilson that we had when he first came into the league. What are his strengths right now? And try and go from there. And I do think he can still cook, Joe, but it is going to be with an easy bake oven.
Oh, but hell yeah.
I think regardless, I think the least desirable situation here for me is Arizona. Arizona, you got the drama with Kyler that you don't know what you've got with him and what the motivation is with him. And we just had reports come out today that they're going to be trying to trade DeAndre Hopkins this offseason. So it sounds like they're going to be kind of in a little bit of a rebuild or at least a quick restart mode right now too. So, I mean, maybe that does entice a coach to come in and can get more of a thumbprint on their offense and on that team than just coming in and having a bunch of veterans and trying to get them to follow through with your system. But I mean, to me, you take DeAndre Hopkins out of that offense, maybe they draft a wide receiver this year and get him somebody else. But I mean, Hollywood, he's fine. He's not a number one. So they need somebody else to come in and be a number one wide receiver for Kyler.
Let me throw you one that I didn't name on this current list, but I think absolutely 1000% needs to open up. Fire Brandon Staley's dumb ass. Are you kidding me? You're out there with nothing to play for. You have the 5th seed locked in for the AFC. If you lose, you're not dropping. If you win, you're not going up. And what does your dumbass do? You play all of your starters for a long time in this game. Guess who ends up out of the game hurt? Two of the most injury-prone players over the last 3 or 4 years, Mike Williams and Joey Bosa. What is he doing? That alone is a fireable offense. That they might lose this game this weekend. If those two players can't go, Mike Williams, we've seen it all year. He's such a big part of that offense. Joey Bosa is one of the best pass rushers in the league. They might lose this game because of this decision that had zero impact to the season. We saw him make that dumbass play call in week 17 last year when all he needed to do was tie with the Raiders, and instead he calls a timeout and allows them to go for it on 4th down. They convert, they lose, and they don't make the playoffs, and the Raiders are in. It's like these week 18 blunders, back-to-back years. Brandon Staley, man, I would not have been upset if they let Staley go after that game, after week 18, going into the playoffs.
Coach for the playoffs. That would have been awesome.
Bring back freaking Anthony Lynn or something. I want to say Schottenheimer, but that's a little long gone. But that's just a fireable offense. Hard for him to do that with, and of course, I mean, the Chargers, when are they not healthy? Always. They're always not healthy. So why wouldn't you rest your guys? Shit. We found out that Herbert was good because their trainer stabbed Tyrod Taylor in the lung. Like, they're always not healthy. Herbert, like, what is he? Oh my God, what is happening?
I know, for Chargers fans' sake, I kind of hope that they do lose this weekend because he does need to get fired. And I think if he does, that is my number one destination for a head coach. You've got a quarterback in Justin Herbert. You've got Austin Eckler, who's awesome back there. You've got good pieces on defense. And I think awesome Eckler, yes. And I think that would be a very desirable spot to land. Are there any other coaches in the playoffs right now that you think, if they don't make a little bit of a run, could end up getting the axe? It sounded like Jerry Jones came out today and voiced his support for Mike McCarthy and everything. That's always been Sean Payton's place that he wants or wanted to coach and everything. But do you see them getting rid of McCarthy? Is there any other coaches out there that you think need to win a game or two in order to keep their job? Or do you think everyone else is pretty much safe?
I think Todd Bowles, I don't think anybody really thinks Todd Bowles is a long-term answer as a head coach. Unfortunately for him, good defensive coordinator. They had good defenses when he was their DC, but when he was the Jets head coach, again, had good defenses, but their offense is always, they never really got going. I think the rest of your teams in here are locked and loaded. I kind of hate to say it, and I know it would never happen, but I feel like every year over the last 5, maybe you could go a decade back, it seems like the Ravens underachieve. I'm not saying Harbaugh's going anywhere, but it seems like, there's some rift between him and Lamar. Lamar sat out again this year. Who knows what the future is with him with the Ravens, if there is one. We don't know yet if he's going to be playing in this first round, this wild card round. There were reports that he was supposed to be back before Christmas. So I don't know what his deal is, but if he has an issue with Harbaugh, who do you side with here? I think management ultimately sides with the head coach in this scenario. But if Lamar has a big issue with Harbaugh, I don't know if they can coexist. And if Lamar really was in love with Harbaugh, you'd think that he'd be playing right now and would have finished out the regular season when he was rumored to be coming back. And maybe he just hasn't ever been cleared by the doctors. I don't know, but it was rumored that he was supposed to be back before Christmas. From Adam Schefter.
Do you think it could have anything to do as well with him? Maybe he was good enough that he could have went, but if he's not 100% with him not having a contract next season, he doesn't want to go out there and jeopardize anything.
I think that's gotta be it. That's the only thing that makes any sense to me, I guess. We saw that with Kyler in the playoffs last year in that game against the Rams. He did not want to run because he didn't have a contract, and he'd already been hurt that season and the season before. Of course, he gets the contract and he has his worst injury of his career with a torn ACL. But I think that that's possible. But it's like either Lamar is just protecting himself, but there's just, I don't know. I have just this feeling that there's some sort of rift between those two, because if you truly love your coach, I think your coach is able to get you to play if you are even questionable, even in Lamar's situation. The Ravens are going to franchise tag him. I think that feels like a done deal. I don't think that this is, why would they have not given him a long-term deal last offseason? It doesn't seem like he's going to be bending on, whether he's going to take less guaranteed money. So if they weren't going to give him a long-term deal last offseason, why would they give it to him this season? So I think they end up franchise tagging him probably twice. And then they're sitting in that same situation that the Cowboys were with Dak, where, well, shit, what do? We let him go and we don't have a quarterback, or, maybe trade him to a QB needy team like he's from Miami. Maybe you send him to the Dolphins and they have the fastest team of all time. I mean, I don't know and you could get a haul of picks, although the Dolphins don't really have much for picks after giving up all that they did for Tyreek Hill and then for Bradley Chubb, giving up another first. So I don't know, just throwing that out there, obviously, but I think Harbaugh's it's just the Ravens just seem to be disappointing by year's end every year lately. I'm not saying he's on the hot seat, but maybe he should be.
Yeah, it's just kind of been their status quo. He's going to get you to the playoffs, but that's about it. Which
first round exit. Maybe you get lucky and it's a second round exit.
Yeah. Yep. And they just locked up Roquan Smith long-term today too. So that's making it more and more likely probably Lamar is going to end up getting franchised.
It almost feels like rubbing this one in and into your face, Lamar. Look at him getting his, $20 million a year contract for a linebacker, highest paid linebacker of all time.
Yep. All right, Joe, let's hit some storylines. We'll see. We're kind of running out of time here, but we'll hit a couple and then we'll carry some over to the next episode. But just kind of some storylines you're watching for going into this offseason. I want to kick it off. We can talk about this game. I know you probably don't want to, but Seattle wins earlier on in the day, and it comes down to Detroit is eliminated from the playoffs, playing at Lambeau. Packers, all they have to do is win and get in, and Detroit goes in and beats Green Bay to the surprise of a lot of people. I didn't think, especially with the playoff spot not on the line for them, that, I think they still wanted to knock the Packers out, but you didn't have that extra motivation of, all right, we win and we get in, which maybe that was a good thing for them. They didn't have the pressure on them. They didn't have anything to lose. And you saw that a little bit with some of the play calling there, but just kind of surprising there. So kind of get your take on that. And then, of course, third season in a row, we're going to have some Aaron Rodgers offseason drama. What's he going to do? So I know
this is becoming Brett Favre.
Yes.
This is becoming the Brett Favre end of his career.
Yep.
So obnoxious. No, I mean, I will say that I expected the Packers to win that game, but it wasn't a shocker to me. I mean, if anybody is going to be able to rally the troops, it's Dan Campbell. I mean, you saw it in his opening press conference talking about eating kneecaps and ripping the legs off of people because they're just going to keep fighting or whatever, weird shit that guy said. It's like, who is this psychopath? Do we need somebody to monitor him? Like, I don't feel safe. But turns out seems like a really, really good head coach. I mean, to be able to turn that team from a 2-win team last season to now a team that finishes above 500, one off season, that's really impressive. And he's clearly gotten his guys to fight. He's getting, I'm sure that he's given Jared Goff all the love in the world, given that if anybody can motivate, he can say, hey, Goff, the entire world Rich had written you off. Go show them that you were a number 1 overall pick for a reason. And Goff had a really nice year.
Yeah.
He's getting the most out of a guy like Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams is perfect for that team, for that head coach. Ended up leading the league in rushing touchdowns this year with 14. Who saw that coming? I mean, fantasy darling if you had the balls to play him on a weekly basis, right. Which that's the problem. Most people probably didn't. Because what the hell? Jamal Williams again? But I guess I'm not surprised. And the other piece to this, offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, that dude deserves a head coaching job now. I mean, he should be, whether it's, you got obviously Sean Payton, Jim Harbaugh, they're out there. DeMeco Ryans, defensive coordinator for the Niners. I think Ben Johnson's got to be right there, though, as one of the top candidates. If you're trying to rebuild your offense, I mean, we saw that final drive against the Packers to clinch that game. He's calling hook and ladders and stuff, and they work to perfection. It really, like, he's a really legit play caller. He's getting a lot out of, getting everything that he can, again, out of Jamal Williams, that two-headed backfield of him and DeAndre Swift. Getting production out of guys, Amon-Ra St. Brown, 4th round pick, Khalif Raymond, who has been hot and cold. He had some really nice games this season. DJ Chark, who we all kind of gave up on after he was out of Jacksonville. Marvin Jones Jr. his career is continuing. Although, he's in Jacksonville, but him and DJ Chark flip-flopped. Yes. And they really, once they let go of TJ Hawkinson, that's kind of when they went on that massive run. Yeah. So that has a lot to do with Ben Johnson. I think he's got to be one of the top 3-4 candidates that are out there, if you're going to include Peyton and Harbaugh. Otherwise, he might be the number 1 or number 2 candidates in my opinion.
Yeah, no, for sure. And yeah, like you said, just the plays he was dialing up on that last drive and going for it on the 4th and 3, got that, or 4th and 2, and then the game or the play to win it and everything too. I mean, it's just, great game all around.
Flawless final drive to finish it. It's really nicely
methodical.
done.
It was just like, it looked easy. I mean, it looked like they weren't even trying. They're just like, oh yeah, all right, yep, call this one perfect.
That's just ran that's a sign of perfection. A good. That's what McVay looked like when he came in with that pathetic Jeff Fisher Rams offense. You saw it the first week that he was there, the first half of the first season that he was there. It's like you just saw things change and things looked easy. And Todd Gurley had career year right away. It's like it's just you see special with coaches right away usually.
So then. Have to ask y'all, saw Rodgers with his arm around Randall Cobb walking off the field. His
look at me, presser. Louis, so hard. Like it looked like he was just like forcing that so hard with Cobb. Like, come here, man. Let's walk off into the sunset together. Like, by ourselves as we go into the tunnel. Like that was so hard. Look at me, Louis.
Unfortunately, I know we're going to be talking about this weekend and week out for the next little bit. Maybe we'll have a week or 2 off as he goes on his retreat or whatever he does this offseason.
Ayahuasca trips
for weeks or whatever. But just initial takeaway right now. What are you thinking after that? Is this the last time we saw him in a Packer uniform, or do you think he'll end up being back next year?
Got 110 million reasons why I think he'll be back. I mean, that's so much money to walk away from. There's every hint out there that says he's going to walk just based on his post-game demeanor, some of his post-game quotes where he seemed more, accepting of retirement than he had at the end of last year. But I mean, and he did bring up the fact that he's made a lot of money, and that wouldn't be a reason to come back. But also, what guy says, yeah, I got 50 million reasons to come back after you've already made however many hundreds of millions he's made? So that wouldn't play well with the media. But there's a reason that he wanted all that cash. He could have very easily, if he felt like he had made enough money in his career, he could have very easily taken a Tom Brady deal and done, a 3-year for $75 million and have all that extra cap space open to sign a guy like his best receiver ever, Devontae Adams. So I think that the money matters to him. And, I just, as a Packer fan, I don't know if I even want him to come back. I mean, I think this is their ceiling. We've seen their ceiling every year. The last 3 years, it's the exit, losing in the NFC Championship game to Brady, losing in the divisional round to Jimmy Garoppolo. This year, not even making the playoffs. I don't see how that that's a trend in the wrong direction. So I don't see how that changes next year. Rodgers doesn't have the same arm. He doesn't have the mobility that he had that made him great, 5 years ago. And we saw some of those throws. That last pick that he threw, which was potentially his last pass as a Packer. I mean, that thing floated in the air for days. It just, when he's been on, that throw is on a freaking line, even though it's 40 yards downfield. It's like on a line in a pinpoint location. That ball was, floated up in the air like a balloon and was 10 plus yards short. So, I don't see this turning around if he does come back, but I've just got this feeling that he does.
All right. Yeah, we'll see. And like I said, we'll be talking about this in detail, I'm sure.
I don't need to spill my entire I got 6 months to cover here at least. So
kind of running out of time with the storylines, Jill. You will be first up tomorrow, so come back tomorrow for the rest of our storylines. Do want to finish out with the Century Tournament of Champions here before we close out for the day. And quite the tournament. Collin Morikawa was just shooting lights out the first 63 holes of the tournament, I would say. He was leading in dominant fashion after day 1, day 2, day 3, and then Jon Rahm's pulls the Lee Corso and
Ramalama Ding Dong.
Ramalama Ding Dong, the return of Ramalama Ding Dong. Pulls the Lee Corso and says, "Not so fast, my friend." Puts up a 10 under final round, started off with a bogey, reels off 9 birdies and an eagle en route to victory, 2-shot win over Collin Morikawa. Collin Morikawa still had a very nice tournament, was bogey-free until the 14th, 15th, 16th holes in that final round, which ended up being his demise there. Ended up getting a birdie back on the par 5 18th, but very disappointing for Morikawa to start on the year. You got to like the way he was playing, though. He was playing well. He just kind of fell apart on that final 9 or final 18 and just didn't do enough to secure the victory.
Yeah. You said it. He had that lead, looked like it was going to be a wire to wire victory, after Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then through the first 13 holes, still looked good for it. 3 straight bogeys, lose by 2. It's like, I don't know. It's disheartening, as obviously not just as a pick, but he's one of my favorite golfers to watch ever since he really came out of the scene. It's like, he's just so entertaining. He does these like silly things when he's out on the course. I think it was at the Genesis maybe last year when he just I think Tiger or somebody was setting up to drive and Justin Thomas setting up himself to drive, and he just walks out right in front of him and he's like, "Oh, sorry." He's just completely oblivious to his surroundings that Justin Thomas is up there about to tee off, he's about to get pounded in the forehead. So it's just funny stuff like that kind of makes me like him. But I was looking forward to, I was thinking, and I texted you this.
You jinxed
before Sunday started that I know I'm counting my eggs or counting my chickens before the eggs hatch, but I feel like we finally got our first winner that we picked. And of course it looks that way until 14 and 15 and 16. How does that happen? I don't know, but I guess the encouraging part for him is it looks like his putter is working this year, at least to start. Some of the post-game commentary or post-round commentary was, he's just got a lot more sturdy of a grip on the club. He's not, wiggling around with his wrists like he kind of would. And he's not accelerating through the ball. He's bringing back his club a little bit further and almost just kind of letting the club fall onto the ball rather than pushing his club through the ball. And that's led to more consistency. We'll see how this plays out as we go far into the season, but that was one of his big things that he worked on in the offseason. And, he putted really well, at least the first 3 rounds. And that's been one of his struggle points in the past. I mean, there's maybe nobody on tour that has a better iron game when it's on than Morikawa. So if he can combine that iron play, drive well enough, and has improved putting, he's got a chance to make a real nice run to the, for that FedEx Cup championship.
Yeah. No, fun tournament to watch. Always a good start to the season. Gets you kind of back into that golf mood, seeing all the nice, beautiful scenery there in Hawaii, the ocean in the background. So got another stop this week.
Is it 17 or 18 that has the grandstand off to the right of the green? It might be. I feel like it's probably. I don't know.
18,
it might be. It is 18.
I think so. Yeah.
That freaked every time I saw that. When it's like I thought the ball was just going straight into the grandstands, then it would, and then it would drop down. It was like just like a weird camera angle, and it would drop, right in front of the green. But it's like that camera angle always like just messed with me.
Yeah. Well, the elevation on that course is just insane. I think from the top of the tee box, I think 17 is the highest point, or 16, one of those two, and then like 7 or something like that. Somewhere on the front's the lowest point. It's like, I think almost like 600 feet of elevation change on that course. Just absolutely insane, but always a good one. And we'll get a quick stop in Honolulu before they come back stateside for the next couple events. But that will wrap up this episode. Can be found at Dead Arm Sports, Twitter, Instagram. Check us out on Facebook at Dead Arm Sports. Go to YouTube, type in Dead Arm Sports, subscribe there, click the bell. That way you know when our live episodes drop. Want to follow Gel, he can be found at DOS Gel. I can be found at DOS JPEG. You can hit us up with any questions there. Give us a follow, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite listening platform. Send us a screenshot and we will get you some swag. Screenshot of your review, that is. Gel, what are those platforms?
Don't just send us some random screenshot of a meme that unless it's a really good meme, then I'm in. Yeah. And we still might swag you out. It's got to be good though. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Pods. And again, as he said, whatever your chosen listening platform is, 5 stars, por favor. Take a screenshot of that written review. Find us on YouTube, search Dead Arm Sports, and subscribe there. Make sure you hit that bell so that when we do go live, you make sure you get the notifications of all of our contents.
All right. Again, appreciate everybody out there listening. We'll be back with you tomorrow. Go through the rest of our storylines for teams that did not make the playoffs. Have our playoff preview along with a pick 'em against the spread. The start of our Drew Locks playoff edition, and of course, Sony Open in Hawaii.
Do I go with Drew Lock this week?
Yes, fresh slate.
He's out there. He's available.
He is. Tune in tomorrow to find out. Gel, closer out.
One more time. Ramalino.